Hello, Internet. It's Daniel with Driving and Dragons, and I'm here with my new series that I'm going to do, the You're Doing It Wrong series. A couple of housekeeping items up first. Number one is, I'm finally there. I've hit 100 subs. Wow, I'm in the triple digit club. Actually, no, it's awesome. I appreciate that there's 100 of you out there who've decided to click the old thumbs up and bell icon and all that fun jazz. And I think maybe I'll do some kind of drive-through RPG gift card type deal giveaway if I get to 1,000 for one of my subs. That said, 280ZX, one of my new subs, old Michael Crumlett's going to have a good time with this one, I think. Got an ASE certified mechanic who's a big fan of the 280ZX and is going to get to watch the humor of my shade tree mechanic ass taking a bath in gasoline. Not just gasoline, but 23-year-old gasoline, as I changed the fuel pump on the 280ZX this time around. Had a situation where I looked up the specs on the size of the fuel line, and I got a fuel filter so that I could plug the hose, I could plug the pipe coming out of the gas tank while I was changing the pump out, and also hopefully I would have a fuel line or a fuel filter both going into the pump and coming out of the pump, which, while I was working with this older vehicle and this older fuel, would give me a chance to have two filters and to protect the pump a little bit while I was getting that old gas out. Because this car, before I bought it to start restoring it, sat in a field in Michigan since 2001, I believe. And here we are in 2024. So, long story short, is either the fuel line is been replaced and is not the factory size, or more likely, the resource I looked up for the size of that fuel line was incorrect, and the fuel filter that I bought to plug the end of it was not enough to stop the fuel from coming out, so I got to have a nice gasoline shower, and got it all on video for everybody's amusement. That moving forward, 100 subs, gasoline showers, getting things moving with the 280. I'm hoping that my next set of recordings and one of my next new videos is actually going to be the maiden cruise of moving that car up the road once I get the starter done. And we're going to do Doing It Wrong. And we're going to pull the topic from a viewer comment here. And we're going to look at session recaps when you come in after going from one session to the next. This is some place where a lot of game masters struggle, a lot of games struggle. I do it myself, mainly because when it comes to the session recaps, a lot rests on the DM or the GM's shoulders, even if you have like a group archivist. That is going to be my first kind of piece of advice here, is if you have somebody who's very good at taking notes in your group, it's just going to make your life 100,000 times easier because it's a second set of eyes paying attention to what's going on. The number one thing I think that interferes with session recaps and where you finish things up is you finish the session. You get on this big high. You're knocking everything out and it is just going awesome. Everybody's building to that crescendo. You're going to fight that big bad evil guy. You're finishing that dungeon. You're coming to the next piece. Or even if let's say you're halfway through and you're coming to that moment of tension. We're coming to that pausing moment. Let's think about that for a second. When we play and we play a session, we're always looking for that pausing moment. We don't want to stop in the middle of combat. We don't want to stop right after going into a dungeon. We want to stop either right after we finish something or generally right after one of those big tense moments happens and we get that pause, or right before we know we're moving into the next big section. So we pause right before the door that goes to the lair of this dragon. We pause right after we've had the climactic battle with the beholder. These are the places we pause to stop our game. We don't go halfway through a shopping excursion in town and say, yeah, well, we're going to call it a game right there. So as a result, normally we're kind of riding a high that is just coming down when we're ending a session. And if we and our players are really invested in it, and as game masters, we are typically very invested in this because we're seeing the culmination of all the stuff we put this work into. We're seeing them go through the back end of that adventure that we spent time crafting. So that is an emotional crescendo if you're invested in your game. And it can be a little draining and exhausting. You finish, you're like, man, I've been playing for 4 or 5 hours, 6 hours, however long your sessions are, even 3 hours. And we've been tied up and emotionally tense and giving these descriptions and stuff for this whole time. Now it's time to clean up the pizza and get the beer bottles off the table, and everybody's just kind of, whew. Think about it that way. Like, what do we do after like a Super Bowl party or a, race party or whatever we do? Whatever your preferred entertainment is, Star Wars marathon, whatever it might be. Man, boy, was that fun. Everybody's going home. You know what? I'll take care of this stuff in the morning. We do the same thing with our prep for a game. The best time for you to sit down, make your notes, make sure everything lines up to get your recap together is right after the end of the session. And all too often the mistake we make is, man, I'll take care of that tomorrow. Doesn't happen the next day. Oh, then it's, that was Sunday. We had a relaxing day. Oh, now we're going to work, back to work on Monday. I had to go through the work day, and then Monday evening you're coming home after that rest day on Sunday and that whole work day on Monday trying to get your recap together. And that's if you even do that. Let's face it, a lot of us game masters, what we do is, man, awesome. See you guys next week for the next session. We plan it, we put it together, and then it's next Friday night. Or it's next Saturday, right when we sit down and everybody's asking, okay, well, where were we at? You're opening back your notebook up and you're saying, oh, well, we were right before the door to the dragon's lair. Oh, shit, I didn't mean to say dragon's lair. Y'all don't know there's a dragon behind there. You don't know that's the dragon lair. Shit, I didn't mean to tell you that. Or, oh, we're right before this big stone door. Well, what did we do before that? Don't we remember something from the room and ahead of that? Yeah, let me flip back to the last page. Remember there was this, and this. And what you end up doing is you end up having some of those early high-energy moments of your game session kind of screwed up because everybody's ready to jump in head first and just get to running. And you're losing some time as everybody's kind of discussing, did we do this? Did we not do that? Man, yeah. Remember so-and-so rolled such and such and got this advantage. Or you forget, because sometimes we have, say, 5 things that the players can discover in the room before you stop. And they only discovered 4 of them. But you didn't bother to make the notes or anything, and you go back and you list off all 5 things were in the room, and next thing you know, your player's like, I don't remember that. Oh, yeah, that's right. So-and-so failed their search check. They didn't have a high enough search check, and you just gave away something they didn't earn. Which sometimes your players might look at that and say, oh, well, that's cool, free bonus for us, but a lot of times that kind of cheapens the adventure for them. You also end up in these back and forth discussions, if you do have that archivist, where his notes don't line up with yours or where he misunderstood something that you said, and now there's confusion because now you're going back to something we did in last session trying to re-describe it. So how do we get around this? How do we do it right? The number one thing is take yourself a few minutes and scribble down some notes at the end of your session. After everybody's gone, after you got the house to yourself, do it as soon as you get home. If you're doing an online game, before you shut down the computer, pull that notepad document up, knock out some quick notes. Make a few quick notes, at least the bullet points, the high spots, and important things like a list of things they missed, things they found, before you call it a night after your session. Even if it's just the bullet points of a list of things they definitely got, things they definitely missed, important high notes, at least when you go back a few days later or whenever to kind of go through things, you can refresh your memory. A second thing is, if you've got that party member who's going to be like the note keeper, bookkeeper, archivist type person, schedule a time. Say, hey, we play on Friday nights. I would like to get together with you on Tuesday for just 5 minutes to kind of go over your notes and mine just to make sure that everything kind of lines up. If you're going to have that resource, use it. Even if it turns into, hey, do me a favor, 30 minutes before the game starts, I want to sit down with you and compare notes and make sure that I've got everything together so I can give a quick, brief session recap. if you really want to push the narrative side of gameplay and you really want to have that immersive storytelling, I would say that you really want to do that earlier on, because I would want to write almost like a last time on D&D Adventure. This is what the party went through. I would almost write it like a series recap or a season recap or a to-be-continued episode recap on a TV show. So you're going to pop in and say, last time on D&D, you did this, and the rogue did that, and the bard broke his guitar and now has no music for the rest of the dungeon, and you're trapped in the dragon's lair. What lies beyond the stone door? Find out now. So the long and short is, session recap. You need to make sure it's prepared early. You need to make sure that you do it while it's still fresh in your brain. And you need to make sure that you cover those high points, not just the high points of what the players do, not just the high points of things they find, but the high points of things they miss as well, so that you don't accidentally reveal that secret door that they missed in the room before that provides the shortcut that they don't get. And now they have to go through this other challenge that you actually spent the last week and a half preparing, but you just goofed up and gave them the secret door that's going to let them get around it, and now you're behind again. Another couple of quick points that I would say on recaps. When you're doing your recap, you want it to be succinct. You want this to be quick and to the point. You don't want to burn 30 minutes of game time, or even 15 minutes of game time, going over what you guys did last week. You want this to be 5 minutes at the beginning of your session. And you want it to be nice and neat. If you have that archivist, you want to have that conversation ahead of time with him, so there's no back and forth with him. You guys have already had your discussions. That way, you're ready to jump right in. The beginning of your session is where you inherently have the highest level of anticipation amongst your players. You don't want to waste that getting people off track, allowing people to become distracted, irritating people with the rehash of last week's game, and even less so with the debate over what we did and what we didn't do. That problem even gets amplified more if you have the guy who missed the session. Because A, he's confused because everybody's got 14 different stories, and B, because he's kind of the odd man out waiting for you guys to figure stuff out, because he has nothing to add to the conversation because he wasn't there. So while you and the other players are going back and forth over what happened and how did it happen, this, that, and the other, you're not only confusing him, he's bored and he's not a participant, and he's starting to have that anticipation replaced with irritation. Same thing with the rest of the table. That anticipation is going down as you're having this adversarial conversation. Session recaps. It needs to be quick and to the point. Bullet points are your friend. Write these things down. Give yourself the high points before you call it a night at the end of your session. Okay, guys, if I missed anything here, let me know. I really think that this can help your game a lot. Just that simple adjustment, regardless of how you take notes during the game, even if you don't take them during the game, your memory is at its best and everything is sharp and clear right at the end of the session. That's when you need to knock it out. Worst case scenario, do it the next morning. If, say, you're really tired or something, at least give yourself those little bullet points and tell me what you think I missed down in the comment section below for this first little edition of You're Doing It Wrong, preparing for the session recap.